Love is supposed to feel like a home, a place where your heart rests, where your soul feels safe, and where your spirit can breathe. But sometimes what we call love turns into a prison built with manipulation, control, jealousy, fear, and pain. That's toxic love. And the hardest part? Many people don't even realize they're trapped inside it. They confuse chaos with passion, control with care, and pain with proof of love. But let me tell you something straight. Real love doesn't destroy you. Real love doesn't take away your peace. Real love doesn't make you doubt your worth every single day. Toxic love does. And when you're stuck in it, breaking free feels terrifying. But I want you to know this. You can break free, and you can do it safely. Tonight, I want to walk you through what it takes to step out of that cycle. Not recklessly, not in fear, but in strength and in safety. Because breaking free from toxic love isn't just about walking away, it's about reclaiming your power, your dignity, and your life. The first step to breaking free from toxic love is being able to actually see it for what it is. And that right there is harder than most people think, because when you're in it, when you're caught up in the cycle of love mixed with pain, your heart and your mind play tricks on you. One moment you're crying because of the way they treated you, and the next moment you're convincing yourself that maybe you overreacted, maybe they didn't mean it. Maybe this is what love is supposed to feel like. That's the poison of toxic love. It hides itself inside the story you've told yourself about who this person is and what you two have together. And if you don't recognize the poison, it'll eat you alive without you even knowing. I've seen it, I've lived it. I've watched people stay in relationships where their entire spirit was being crushed, and yet they kept saying, "But I love them." Listen to me carefully. Love is not supposed to hurt like that. Love is not supposed to make you feel small or worthless or like you're walking on eggshells every single day. If every time you speak your truth, it turns into a fight, if every time you set a boundary, they punish you for it, if every time you feel happy, they find a way to bring you back down, that's not love, that's control. That's not care. That's manipulation. That's not passion. That's chaos. And the longer you ignore it, the deeper those roots dig into your heart, until you start thinking maybe you deserve it. But you don't. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. The thing about toxic love is that it doesn't always start toxic. No, it starts with charm, it starts with passion. It starts with promises of forever, with words that sound like music, with moments that feel like magic. And that's why you hold on so tightly when the storm comes, because you're still clinging to the memory of that person they were in the beginning. You keep saying to yourself, if I just try harder, if I just love them enough, maybe that person will come back. But here's the truth you need to swallow. That version of them was a mask. And the person they're showing you now, the one who lies, the one who disrespects you, the one who controls you, that's who they really are. Once you see that clearly, once you stop waiting for the mask to return, you'll finally start to recognize the poison. I know it's not easy to admit. Nobody wants to look in the mirror and say, I'm in a toxic relationship. Because the moment you say it out loud, you can't unsee it anymore. The excuses start to fall apart. You can't hide behind, but they love me, when their actions scream the opposite. You can't hide behind, but we have history, when that history is filled with scars. And I'll tell you something, that moment of recognition, that moment you whisper to yourself, this isn't love, that's the beginning of freedom. It doesn't mean you're ready to leave today. It doesn't mean you have all the answers, but it means you've woken up. And when you wake up, the poison can't blind you anymore. The thing is, recognition takes courage, because you have to admit that the person you trusted, the person you gave your heart to, is also the person who's been hurting you. You have to admit that all those times you blamed yourself, you weren't the problem. You have to admit that those apologies that never matched their actions weren't real. And most of all, you have to admit that the love you've been holding on to might not be love at all. That hurts. I know it does. But sometimes the truth has to hurt before it heals. Sometimes you've got to rip off the bandage to finally let the wound breathe. So, here's what I'm telling you. Start paying attention. Listen to how your body feels when you're around them. Do you feel safe, or do you feel tense? Do you feel loved, or do you feel controlled? Do you feel heard, or do you feel silenced? Your body doesn't lie, even when your heart tries to. Pay attention to the patterns, not the promises. Anybody can promise change. Anybody can say the right words. But love is not about words. It's about consistency. And if their consistency is pain, that's the truth you've got to recognize. And once you see it, don't gaslight yourself anymore. Don't say, maybe it's not that bad. Don't say, maybe I'm overreacting. If it hurts, it hurts. If it steals your peace, it's not right. If it makes you lose yourself, it's toxic. Don't downplay your own suffering just because you're afraid of what it means to face it. You deserve to be honest with yourself. You deserve to name the poison before it destroys you. And let me remind you, you're not weak for being in it. You're not stupid for not seeing it sooner. You're human. You loved deeply, and sometimes love makes us blind. But the moment you open your eyes, you take back your power. And that, my friend, is where the journey of breaking free truly begins. You know, a lot of people think that when you finally realize you're in a toxic relationship, the answer is simple: just leave. Just pack your bags, slam the door, and walk away. And while that sounds powerful in theory, reality doesn't always work like that. Because when you're dealing with someone who manipulates you, controls you, or maybe even threatens you, leaving recklessly can put you in more danger. And let's be real, sometimes there are kids involved, sometimes finances are tangled up, sometimes your own heart is so invested that walking away in one night just isn't possible. That's why I tell people, don't think in terms of a dramatic escape. Think in terms of a safe exit. It's not about rushing, it's about being smart, being strategic, and making sure you protect yourself in the process. See, toxic people feed off chaos. They want you to act impulsively, they want you to explode because then they can twist the story, blame you, and even pull you back in with guilt. But when you plan your exit quietly, when you start creating distance without announcing it, you take away their power, you start reclaiming your own. Maybe that means slowly reconnecting with people you've been isolated from. Toxic partners often cut you off from family or friends, so you have no support. But little by little, you can start reaching out. A text here, a call there, maybe even visiting someone you trust. Building a circle of support is like building your safety net. You'll need it when the time comes. Another piece of building your exit is financial. Let's be honest, money is one of the biggest reasons people stay stuck. If they've got control over the bills, the house, the accounts, it can feel impossible to leave. But don't let that paralyze you. Start small. Set aside what you can, even if it's just a little at a time. Open an account they don't know about. Keep some cash hidden somewhere safe. It's not about running tomorrow, it's about giving yourself options. Because when you have resources, even small ones, you create leverage, and leverage is freedom. Now let's talk about emotions. Because even if you're planning an exit, your heart is still tangled up. That's why people fall back into the cycle. They leave, but then they remember the good moments, or they believe the apologies and they go back. I want you to hear me, every time you go back, it gets harder to leave again. So while you're planning your exit, you've got to build your inner strength too. That might mean journaling about the bad moments, so you don't forget the truth. It might mean therapy, if you have access to it. It might mean talking to a friend who can remind you why you need to get out. Toxic love has a way of rewriting your memory, making you remember only the highs while blocking out the lows. So don't let your mind trick you. Write it down. Remind yourself daily why leaving is necessary. And here's something else. Don't announce your exit before you're ready. Too many people warn their toxic partner, if you do this again, I'm gone, or I can't take this anymore, I'm leaving. And what happens? The partner flips into charm mode. They cry, they apologize, they promise the world. Or worse, they get aggressive, they threaten you, they scare you into staying. Either way, you lose ground. A safe exit means keeping your plan close to your chest. It means preparing silently without tipping them off, until the moment comes when you can walk away for good. For some people, a safe exit also means involving professionals. Maybe that's law enforcement if there's real danger. Maybe it's a lawyer if there are kids or property involved. Maybe it's a counselor who can help you emotionally detach. Don't be afraid to seek help from people who know how to navigate situations like this. You don't have to do it alone, and in fact, trying to do it alone can make it harder. The right kind of support doesn't just give you strength. It gives you safety. And let's not forget, safety isn't just physical. It's emotional and mental too. Toxic partners know exactly how to pull you back in with words. They know your weaknesses, your triggers, your soft spots. That's why part of building your exit is preparing yourself for the storm that comes after. Because chances are, once you leave, they'll try everything: apologies, threats, promises, guilt tips to make you come back. That's when you'll need boundaries like a shield. That's when you'll need to block numbers, avoid contact, and remind yourself that breaking free isn't about one moment. It's about resisting the pull back into the cycle. I want you to think of it like this. Building your safe exit is like preparing for a journey. You don't just run out the door barefoot into the night. You pack your bag, you know where you're going, you make sure the path is clear. Because this isn't just about leaving, it's about leaving well. It's about leaving in a way where you don't have to turn back. And that takes time, patience, and strategy. So no, breaking free doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks quiet. Sometimes it looks like slow preparation behind the scenes. Sometimes it looks like making small moves that nobody notices until one day you're gone and they can't pull you back. That's strength. That's wisdom. And that's how you break free safely. Walking away from toxic love is not the finish line. It's the starting line. People think the hardest part is leaving, but let me tell you, sometimes the hardest part comes after you've left. Because once you're out, once you're no longer in the chaos, all the wounds that you were ignoring start to ache. You see, while you were in that toxic relationship, you were in survival mode. You didn't have time to stop and process all the pain. You were too busy trying to keep the peace, trying not to set them off, trying to hold yourself together. But when you finally get free, the silence hits, and that's when you realize your heart is carrying scars, your mind is carrying memories, and your soul is carrying weight. Healing those wounds is the real battle. And it's the part most people don't talk about enough. Healing starts with honesty, and honesty hurts. Because you've got to look at yourself in the mirror and admit that you were in something that broke you. You've got to face the fact that you tolerated things you shouldn't have. You accepted apologies that were empty. You stayed longer than you should have, and the temptation is to beat yourself up for it. To say, how could I have been so blind? How could I let this happen to me? But listen closely, that kind of self-blame will keep you stuck. You didn't deserve what happened. You didn't invite the lies, the control, the disrespect. You loved and you gave and you trusted. And that's not weakness. That's humanity. Healing means forgiving yourself for not knowing better back then, while at the same time promising yourself that you'll never go back to that place again. The thing about toxic love is it leaves invisible wounds. Sometimes you don't even realize how deep they go until you're trying to move forward. You'll notice it when someone raises their voice and your whole body tenses. You'll notice it when you find yourself apologizing for things you didn't even do. You'll notice it when you second-guess your worth, wondering if you're too much or not enough. That's what manipulation and gaslighting do. They don't just hurt in the moment, they rewire the way you see yourself. And healing is about unlearning those lies. It's about reminding yourself over and over that you are worthy, you are lovable, and you never have to beg for the respect you deserve. One of the most powerful steps in healing is reclaiming your voice. In toxic love, your voice gets silenced. Maybe you were told your feelings were too dramatic. Maybe every time you spoke up, you were punished with anger or coldness. So little by little, you stopped speaking. You swallowed your truth. You minimized your pain, but healing is about finding that voice again. It's about saying how you feel without fear, about expressing yourself without apology. At first, it feels uncomfortable. At first, you'll hear their voice in your head, criticizing you, shaming you, making you doubt yourself. But the more you speak, the more you reclaim. And each time you use your voice, it's like taking back another piece of yourself they tried to erase. And let's talk about trust, because that's another wound toxic love leaves behind. When someone you loved betrayed you, manipulated you, or hurt you, it shakes the foundation of how you trust people. You start to wonder, what if everyone is like that? What if love always comes with pain? What if I can't trust my own judgment anymore? That's normal. You can't let fear keep you locked in isolation forever. Healing means slowly, carefully learning to trust again, not blindly, not recklessly, but with wisdom. It means setting boundaries and respecting your own red flags. It means not rushing into something new just to fill the emptiness, but instead allowing yourself to rebuild at your own pace. And yes, you will stumble, but each time you honor your boundaries, each time you say no when something feels wrong, you're proving to yourself that you can trust yourself again. Another part of healing is rediscovering who you are outside of that toxic love. Because let's be real, when you're in a relationship that consumes you, you lose parts of yourself. Maybe you gave up hobbies you loved because they didn't approve. Maybe you stopped seeing friends because they made you feel guilty. Maybe you stopped dreaming because they told you your goals were silly. Healing is about picking those pieces back up. It's about asking yourself, who was I before them? Who am I now? Who do I want to become? And then slowly, patiently, bringing yourself back to life. Go back to the things that light you up. Surround yourself with people who remind you of your strength. Try new experiences that make you feel alive again. Healing is not just about fixing what was broken, it's about rebuilding into something even stronger. Now let me tell you something you might not want to hear. Healing takes time. A lot of time. We live in a world that tells us to move on quickly, to forgive and forget, to just get over it. But you can't rush this process. Wounds don't close overnight, and scars don't fade in a week. Some days you'll feel strong, and other days you'll feel like you're right back where you started. That's okay. Healing isn't linear. It's messy. It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But every step counts. Every tear you cry is part of the relief. Every boundary you set is part of the rebuilding. Every moment you choose peace over chaos is part of the healing. And don't be afraid to ask for help. You don't have to do this alone. Whether it's therapy, support groups, friends, or family, healing is easier when you're not carrying the weight by yourself. Sometimes just saying out loud what you went through takes away half the power it had over you. Sometimes hearing someone say, "I believe you, I see you, I understand you," is the balm your soul needed. Don't isolate yourself in silence. Connection is medicine. Above all, remember this: healing is not about going back to who you were before the toxic love. That version of you was innocent, yes, but also vulnerable to being hurt that way. Healing is about becoming a wiser, stronger version of yourself. It's about carrying the lessons without carrying the pain. It's about knowing that you walked through fire, but you didn't burn. You came out forged into steel. And when you reach that place, when the memories no longer break you, when the triggers no longer control you, that's when you'll realize you didn't just survive, you transformed. So don't rush. Don't give up. Don't think you're weak for still hurting months or even years later. Healing is not weakness. It's the bravest thing you'll ever do. Because you're choosing to face the wounds instead of burying them. You're choosing to grow instead of staying broken. And most importantly, you're choosing to believe that even after toxic love, healthy love is possible, starting with the love you give to yourself. You see, breaking free from toxic love isn't just about leaving that one person. It's about making a decision that from this day forward, you will never walk back into that same cycle again. Because what good is it to leave if you keep finding yourself in the same kind of relationship over and over? That's how patterns form. Because you escape one trap, but you don't heal, you don't learn, you don't protect yourself, and then the same poison finds its way back to you in a different face, a different name, a different story. And if you're not careful, you end up repeating the same pain in different chapters of your life. Protecting your future means breaking that cycle. It means saying to yourself, "I've suffered enough, I've lost enough, I've been broken enough. I will not let this happen again." Now, the first way you protect your future is by setting boundaries and sticking to them. Boundaries are not walls to keep love out. They are filters to keep poison out. And the truth is, in toxic relationships, your boundaries got trampled. Maybe every time you said no, they pushed harder. Maybe every time you asked for respect, they twisted it into you being too sensitive or too needy. So you stopped setting them. You stopped protecting yourself. But now that you're free, it's time to rebuild those boundaries and honor them like your life depends on it. Because it does. Boundaries are the difference between falling back into chaos and standing tall in your peace. And listen, don't just set them in your mind, speak them, write them, live them. Let your actions show that you mean it. Because people will test you. They will see how far they can go. But if you stand firm, you'll teach them how to treat you. Another way you protect your future is by raising your standards. A lot of people leave toxic love, but they still carry the belief that love has to hurt a little, that relationships are supposed to be difficult, that being controlled is a sign of passion. Those are lies that toxic love planted in your head, and if you don't rip them out by the roots, you'll accept the same treatment again. So raise your standards. Stop accepting bare minimums. Stop letting someone's excuses sound like effort. Stop thinking that just because someone gives you attention, it's the same as love. You've got to remind yourself every day. Love is supposed to feel safe, steady, supportive. Love should add to your peace, not take it away. And if it doesn't, you walk away. No hesitation, no apology. Here's the truth: you've got to trust yourself again. Toxic love breaks that trust. It makes you doubt your own intuition, your own judgment. Maybe you saw the red flags early on, but you ignored them because you were in love. Maybe you felt something was wrong, but they convinced you it was all in your head. And little by little, you stopped listening to your inner voice. But protecting your future means reconnecting with that voice, learning to trust it again. Your gut is powerful. It warns you, it guides you. It knows when something's off. Don't ignore it anymore. If something feels wrong, don't explain it away. Don't wait for proof. Trust yourself enough to walk away at the first signs of poison, not after it's consumed you. And here's something important. Protecting your future doesn't mean closing your heart forever. It doesn't mean building a fortress so high that nobody can ever reach you. No, it means learning the difference between love and toxicity so that when real love comes along, you can let it in without fear. Because if you're not careful, the pain from your past can harden you. It can make you believe love isn't worth the risk. And that's not the truth. Love is beautiful when it's healthy. Love is powerful when it's real. But you've got to protect your heart so that only the right kind of love gets in. That means being patient. That means not rushing just because you're lonely. That means being okay with being single until someone comes along who treats you with the respect, the kindness, and the consistency you deserve. Protecting your future also means watching for the patterns in yourself. Because let's be real, it's not just about the toxic partner, it's about the parts of you that accepted that toxicity. Maybe you grew up around unhealthy examples of love, so chaos felt normal. Maybe you believed deep down that you didn't deserve better, so you settled for less. Maybe you were afraid of being alone, so you held on to anyone who gave you attention. Whatever it is, you've got to face it. You've got to do the inner work to understand why you stayed, so you don't repeat the same mistake. It's not about blaming yourself, it's about empowering yourself. When you know your triggers, when you know your blind spots, you're stronger. You can see the red flags for what they are and say, not this time. I know better now. And let me tell you, protecting your future takes courage. Because it means walking away at the first sign of disrespect. Even if you're afraid of being alone, it means saying no to people who try to push your boundaries. Even if it costs you relationships. It means holding out for something real. Even when everyone else tells you you're being too picky. But listen, being picky is not a weakness. It's wisdom. You've been through the fire and you know it burns. You don't have to apologize for refusing to get burned again. There's also the reality of healing while protecting your future. Because sometimes you'll still feel the pull of old patterns. You might find yourself drawn to someone who feels familiar, and familiar isn't always safe. That's when you've got to slow down. Ask yourself, does this feel good because it's healthy, or does it feel good because it reminds me of the chaos I'm used to? Sometimes our hearts crave the familiar even when it hurts. Protecting your future means breaking that craving. It means teaching yourself to be comfortable with peace even when it feels strange. It means letting calmness be exciting, letting kindness feel normal, letting respect be your baseline. And finally, protecting your future is about honoring the fight it took to get here. Don't forget what you went through. Don't minimize the pain you survived. Don't let anyone convince you to lower your guard. You worked too hard, cried too many tears, and broke too many chains to ever go back. Every time you're tempted to settle, remember the nights you begged for peace. Every time you think about accepting less, remember the days you thought you'd never escape. Let your past be your teacher, not your prison. Because when you protect your future, you're not just keeping out toxic love, you're making space for real love. The kind that heals instead of hurts. So when you think about breaking free, don't just think about walking away. Think about walking forward into a life where you never let yourself be destroyed again. Think about protecting your peace like it's your most valuable treasure. Think about guarding your heart not out of fear but out of wisdom. And know this, you deserve a future where love is safe, steady, and true. And when you protect that future, nothing and nobody can take it away from you again.